Good morning. My name is Ted Poe. I am a member of Congress from the state of Texas, and I'm glad to be here with you today with some other right-thinking people about the most important thing any of us desire and any of us will ever have, and that is freedom. Freedom to determine our own destiny. And that is not possible for some peoples in the world. And here in this country, we love the concept of liberty and freedom. But halfway around the world, in places that you know exist, out in the middle of the desert, a place called Camp Ashraf, there are people, good people, who don't live in freedom. They are not only oppressed by really one government, they are oppressed by two governments. First, the Iraqi government, and then the government of the little tyrant of the desert, Ahmadinejad, and his Iranian government are oppressing the folks at Camp Ashraf. And we have this message for both of those governments, that those people in Camp Ashraf have the absolute human right to live in freedom and safety. And those of us here in the United States who are concerned about human rights, we are watching both of those governments to make sure that those people are protected and that those families, your families, are kept safe. I've also got news for those two governments, that this issue is not going away. We are going to continue to press the issue of safety for the people in Camp Ashraf, contrary to the wishes of Ahmadinejad and maybe contrary to the wishes of Iraq. We are not going away, they are not going away, and you are not going away. We also are here today to make sure that the Iranian government and other governments understand that there are 110 members of the United States Congress from both parties, bipartisan, that are saying that through legislation that we have filed as co-sponsors, House Resolution 1431, that MEK needs to be taken immediately off the terrorist list here in the United States. It's long overdue, it has not been done, and now is the day of reckoning where we want the MEK and its designation delisted from the terrorist list in the United States. We need to make sure that the folks in Iran know that the people in other countries know that, but also that our State Department knows that a vast number of members of Congress support this legislation. And at the end of this term, if this legislation doesn't pass, it'll be reintroduced in January in a bipartisan manner, because we are not going away, and neither are you, and neither is this legislation. I also want to congratulate and thank Mr. Bob Filner and others who have today sent a letter to Secretary Clinton, again urging her to remove the MEK from the terrorist list. I've also sent a personal letter to her as well, requesting that the State Department get its house in order and remove the MEK designation as a terrorist group. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank all of you folks from the state of Texas, you Iranian Texans that are here. You know, something about folks that go to Texas or are born in Texas, they just start to become very vocal. And I want to thank you for being vocal and making this issue one that is an important international issue, a human rights issue, to designate, delist MEK, to make sure that we watch with a watchful, careful eye what takes place in Camp Ashraf. And the last comment that I would make is to these people, your family and friends that are still in Iran, that we are concerned, I am concerned about what takes place there, as you are concerned, that human rights violations must cease to operate against the Iranian people. Our quarrel as a nation, the United States, is not with the Iranian people. Our quarrel is with the government of Iran that's a rogue government, that's illegitimately part of the regime and runs roughshod over people who live in Iran. And I want to encourage those good folks in Iran who want to control their own government to not give up, to not be weary, to be strong and courageous. Sometimes you have to fight a battle more than once to win it. So continue to fight that battle, to regain the human dignity, the freedom that you so rightly deserve, and control over your own country. Because we are not going away. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see you all. We have to keep up the pressure, as Judge Poe said. So thank you all. I was just told, by the way, that all these flags, and at one point there'll be 37 of them, represent the states for which we have co-sponsors for our legislation. So that's what they all represent, and so hopefully we'll have all 50 at some point. As you know, we have introduced Resolution 1431, which calls upon the U.S. government and the President, the Secretary of State, to condemn human rights violations in Iraq and to support the Iranian people's endeavors toward democracy. In addition, it asks the Secretary of State to remove the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, that is the MEK, from the State Department's list of foreign terrorist organizations. I think you all know that soon after the United States handed responsibility for Camp Ashraf over to Iraq, the forces in Iraq in January 2009 carried out a violent raid against Camp Ashraf, which left 11 residents dead and hundreds injured. Despite the promises to protect the camp residents, the Iraqi government has continued to violate human rights of members estimated to be over 3,400, including 1,000 women. This needs to stop. And my resolution, which I am proud to say has bipartisan support with more than 100 members, co-sponsors, 9 of which sit on the Foreign Relations Committee of our Congress, seeks to have the MEK removed from the terrorist list, which has served as the pretext for the Iranian regime agents in Iraq to act against the residents of Ashraf. Like other parliaments around the world, we in the United States Congress believe that this organization does not qualify to be on the FTO list, both on legal and political grounds. Removing the MEK from the FLO list is not only the right thing to do, but it sends the right message to Iran. We know the Iranian regime has rebuffed offers of negotiations and appeals and stepped up their intransigence to every sphere of cooperation, in the United States, including human rights, the nuclear weapons program, and support for terrorism in the region. This morning, we sent a joint letter, a bipartisan letter to Secretary Clinton that urges her, that tells her about H.R. 1431, and stated that the number of members that we have co-sponsoring it, and we note that Iranian officials should not be seen as exploiting an unjust U.S. designation to further justify their draconian punishment on prisoners of conscience. We know that the MEK's continued designations in the United States has deadly consequences. Our resolution sends a message to the world that violations of human rights will not be tolerated. I would like to, of course, thank the President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, Mrs. Rajavi, who not only has, of course, led this fight, but has offered all kinds of assistance and aid to the residents of Ashraf.